One human departed, and the galaxy realized peace was over. The conference room on Andros Station was silent. 12 species sat around the circular table, their translators humming softly. At the head of the table sat a human man with gray hair and tired eyes. Commander Taman did not speak loudly. He did not need to. The mining rights belonged to both species, Taman said quietly. His voice was calm, almost gentle. You will share the asteroid field. 60-40 split, rotating every 5 years. The Scaleth representative, a massive reptilian creature named Vraxis, opened his mouth to argue. His species had warships waiting just outside the neutral zone. His claws tapped on the table, a sign of aggression among his kind. Taman looked at him. Just looked. His dark eyes held something that made Vraxis close his mouth. Everyone in the room knew what those eyes had seen. Everyone knew what those hands had done. 60-40, Vraxis agreed. His voice was bitter, but he agreed. The meeting ended 30 minutes later. Another conflict resolved. Another war prevented. Taman stood slowly, his joints aching. He was 58 years old, and he felt every single year. His aide, Commander Hyunsu, approached with a data pad. Sir, there are 3 more disputes waiting for your attention, Hyunsu said. He was a younger human, loyal and sharp. He had served under Taemin for 15 years. Schedule them for next month, Taemin replied. I am going home, Hyunsu blinked. Home, sir? But the situation in the Varanthi sector will wait. Taemin placed a hand on his aide's shoulder. I am retiring, Hyunsu. The words hung in the air like a weapon had been fired. Hyunsu stared at his commander, speechless. Across the station, the news began to spread. By the time Taemin's shuttle departed for Earth, every government in the coalition knew. Commander Taemin was done. The human peacekeeper was leaving. On Earth, Taemin's daughter Jiwoo was working in her laboratory on Luna Base. She was a quantum engineer, brilliant and focused. She knew her father was important, knew he worked in diplomacy, but she did not know the full truth. She did not know that half the galaxy feared him. When her father called to tell her he was coming home, she was happy. It will be good to have you around, Dad, she said, smiling at the video screen. The kids miss their grandfather. Taemin smiled back. It was a genuine smile, rare and warm. I miss them too. I miss all of you. 6 months passed. Taemin lived quietly in a small house near the ocean. He played with his grandchildren. He gardened. He read books he had never had time for. He seemed content. He died in his sleep on a Tuesday morning. His heart simply stopped. He was 59 years old. The funeral was small. Family and a few friends. Hyunsu came dressed in civilian clothes, his face hard with grief. A few military officers attended, men and women who had served with Taemin decades ago. That was all. The galaxy received a standard notification. Commander Taemin, retired Earth Defense Force, deceased. Services private. Most species sent polite condolences. It was the diplomatic thing to do. But in private rooms, in encrypted channels, in the dark corners of space stations, different conversations were happening. On a Scaleth warship, Vraxis read the news and smiled with his sharp teeth. Finally, he said to his officers, the old human is dead. Begin preparations. We move on the mining colonies in 30 days. In the crystalline towers of the Luminar homeworld, Ambassador Kasara felt a chill run through her body. She knew what was coming. She had seen this before, long ago, before Taemin. She remembered the wars. On a Varanthi hive ship, Ulthanor clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. The human is gone. Now we reclaim what was stolen from us. Alert the fleet commanders. Within 48 hours, military movements began across the galaxy. Old borders became contested again. Disputes that had been settled suddenly reopened. Small skirmishes broke out in 3 different sectors. The coalition held an emergency session. Representatives demanded answers, accused each other, shouted across the chamber. But nothing was decided. No action was taken. They formed a committee to study the situation. On Earth, President Dong-hyun watched the reports with growing alarm. He called his military advisors. What is happening out there? Admiral Subin, commander of Earth's home fleet, answered grimly. They are testing us, Mr. President. They want to see if we will respond the way Taemin would have. And will we? Subin hesitated. She had been Taemin's student once, had learned fleet tactics from him. But she was not him. No one was. We will defend our people, sir. But I cannot do what he did. No one can. The president looked confused. What do you mean? He was a negotiator, a diplomat. No, sir. Subin shook her head. He was much more than that. He was the reason they did not fight. Not because of his words, because of who he was, what he had done. On Luna Base, Jiwoo was packing up her father's belongings from his old military quarters. The station had kept his room reserved even after retirement. She found medals, old photographs, and sealed data cores. As she worked, Ambassador Kasara arrived. The Luminar was tall and elegant, her crystalline body reflecting light in rainbow patterns. Miss Jiwoo, she said gently, may I speak with you? Of course. Jiwoo was surprised. She had never met a Luminar before. Did you know my father? I did. Very well. Kasara moved into the room, her movements fluid and strange. I came to pay my respects, and to tell you the truth about him. The truth? Kasara's eyes glowed softly. Your father was not just a soldier or a diplomat. He was the single reason the galaxy had peace for 200 years. Not because of treaties or laws. Because every warlord, every ambitious leader, every species that wanted to take what was not theirs knew one thing. If they started a war, they would face Taimin. Jiwoo sat down slowly. I don't understand. 30 years ago, the Scaleth Empire tried to invade the Outer Rim. They sent a fleet of 300 warships. Your father took one ship and 12 soldiers. He boarded the Scaleth flagship, fought his way to the bridge, and held a blade to the warlord's throat. He made them retreat. One man stopped an empire. Kasara continued, her voice sad. 20 years ago, my own people tried to claim a sector of space by force. We sent diplomats. We sent threats. Your father came alone to our homeworld. He spoke to our council for 6 hours. When he left, we abandoned our claims, not because he threatened us, because he showed us records of what war would cost. He had calculated casualties down to the individual. He knew our population, our military strength, our weaknesses. He knew everything, and he made us understand that war with him would mean our extinction. Jiwoo's hands were shaking. He never told me any of this. He would not. He was a humble man. But you must understand, Jiwoo. Your father is dead, and now the galaxy is waking up. The predators are remembering their hunger. The weak are becoming prey. Peace was not built on diplomacy. It was built on fear of one human who refused to let the killing continue. Kasara moved to the window, looking out at Earth below. They are coming now. All of them. And they think humanity is weak without him. Jiwoo stood, her mind racing. She looked at the sealed data cores on the desk. Her father's files. His secrets. What do we do? I do not know, Kasara admitted. But you are his daughter. Perhaps you will find a way. Because if you do not, the galaxy will burn. The peace is over, Jiwoo. Your father's death ended it. Outside, in the darkness of space, ships were moving. Fleets were gathering. And across 1,000 worlds, old grudges were being remembered. The galaxy had lived under the protection of one human shadow for so long that they had forgotten what darkness looked like. Now they were about to remember. One human departed, and the galaxy realized peace was over. 30 days after Taimin died, the Scaleth Empire made its move. 3 warships appeared above Mining Colony 17, a small human settlement on the edge of disputed space. The colony had 400 inhabitants, mostly families. They had no military defense. The Scaleth commander sent a simple message. This territory belongs to the Empire. You have 12 hours to evacuate. The colony sent desperate calls for help. The Coalition Security Council held an emergency meeting. Representatives argued for 6 hours. Some wanted to respond with force. Others claimed the territory was legally unclear. The Varanthi representative suggested that perhaps the Scaleth had a point. Maybe the colony was in the wrong place. In the end, they voted for monitored observation. It meant they would watch and do nothing. The colony evacuated. Families packed what they could carry and left their homes behind. The Scaleth moved in and claimed the mining equipment, the supplies, everything. Not a single shot was fired. Not a single ship came to help. On Earth, President Dong-Hyun watched the footage of families boarding transport ships. Children crying, parents carrying hastily packed bags. He slammed his fist on his desk. This is unacceptable. We need to respond. His advisors looked uncomfortable. Sir, the Coalition has not authorized military action, one said carefully. Then we authorize it ourselves. Admiral Subin, deploy the 3rd Fleet to reclaim that colony. Subin nodded. Yes, sir. But I must warn you, this will be seen as aggression. Other species will use it as an excuse to act. Let them see it however they want. We protect our people. The Third Fleet arrived at Colony 17 3 days later. The Scaleth ships retreated without fighting. It was a victory, but it was not the end. On the other side of the galaxy, the Varanthi Collective launched what they called a reclamation operation. They sent military forces to 3 trade stations that had been built in neutral space 40 years ago. The stations were operated by multiple species, including humans. These stations are built on ancient Varanthi territory, Ulthanor announced to the Coalition. We are simply reclaiming what was always ours. The station crews resisted. Small firefights broke out. 17 people died in the fighting. The Varanthi took control of all 3 stations within a week. The Coalition called another meeting. More arguing. More committees formed. No action taken. On a human freighter near the Kryn system, Captain Jun Ho was transporting medical supplies when his sensors detected multiple ships approaching. They were Kryn raiders, small fast attack craft. Pirates. This is human freighter Songbird, Jun Ho broadcast. We are on a medical relief mission. Do not interfere, the Kryn ships opened fire. Jun Ho's shields held, but barely. He pushed his engines to maximum and ran. Behind him, the pirates laughed over the radio. The humans have no teeth anymore. The old monster is dead. Jun Ho escaped, but his ship was damaged. When he reported the attack, Coalition security said they would investigate. Nothing came of it. Back on Earth, Admiral Subin sat in her office studying reports. Her assistant, a young officer named Minji, brought her more bad news every hour. Border violations, pirate attacks, territory disputes. The list was growing. It is coordinated, Minji said quietly. She was an intelligence analyst, good at seeing patterns. Look at the timing. The Scaleth move exactly when the Varanthi make their claim. The Kryn raids increase right after. They are testing us, testing the Coalition. Subin nodded slowly. They are testing whether anyone will do what Taemin did, whether anyone will stand up and say no. And we are failing that test. Yes. Subin stood and walked to her window. She could see Earth below, blue and green and beautiful. I was his student, Minji. I learned tactics from him, strategy. But I am not him. When Taemin entered a room, warlords became afraid. When I enter a room, they calculate whether they can beat me, and sometimes they can. Minji brought up a star map. Red markers showed conflicts. There were dozens now scattered across Coalition space. What do? We protect what we can. We respond where we must, and we pray that someone figures out how to stop this before it becomes a full war. In her laboratory on Luna Base, Jiwoo had not slept in 3 days. She was going through her father's data cores, the ones Kasara told her about. The files were heavily encrypted. It took her quantum engineering skills to break through the security. What she found inside made her stop breathing. Complete dossiers on every major leader in the galaxy. Vraxis, Ulthanor, and dozens of others. But these were not simple intelligence files. They were psychological profiles. Detailed analysis of their fears, their ambitions, their weaknesses. Her father had spent decades studying these people. There were battle plans. Hundreds of them. Scenarios for conflicts that had never happened because her father had prevented them. Each plan was brutally efficient. Most involved very small forces doing impossible things. And there were recordings. Personal logs. Her father's voice speaking to a camera, alone in his quarters late at night. If you are watching this, Jiwoo, then I am gone, and the galaxy is falling apart. She played the recording, tears running down her face. They will think humanity is weak now. They are wrong. You are my daughter. You have my mind, even if you do not have my training. These files contain everything I know, every secret, every piece of leverage I use to keep the peace. I cannot tell you what to do with them, but I trust you to make the right choice. The recording ended. Jiwoo sat in silence for a long time. Then Hyunsu arrived. Taemin's old aide looked older now, tired. Miss Jiwoo, I hoped I would find you here. You knew about these files? I knew they existed. Your father told me he was preparing them for you. He spent his last months updating everything. Hyunsu sat down heavily. He knew this would happen. He tried to prepare us, but there was not enough time. He was training you, trying to, but I am not like him, Jiwoo. I am a good officer. I can plan operations and lead soldiers, but I cannot do what he did. I cannot walk into a room of enemies and make them surrender with just words and reputation. Jiwoo looked at the data cores. These files, they have information on everyone. Their secrets. Their crimes. Things they do not want anyone to know. Yes, your father gathered intelligence for decades. He never used it to blackmail or threaten. He just let them know he had it. That was enough. So he kept peace through fear. No. Hyun-soo shook his head firmly. He kept peace through respect. They feared his knowledge, yes, but they also respected his fairness. He never punished anyone who chose peace. He only acted against those who chose violence. And when he acted, he was terrifying. Jiwoo stood and walked to the window, just as Kasara had done days before. I am not a soldier. I cannot fight. Your father did not win his battles through fighting. Not really. He won through intelligence, planning, and making his enemies believe that fighting him would cost more than they could afford to pay. You think I can do that? Hyun-soo looked at her with something like hope in his eyes. I think you have your father's mind. And right now that might be exactly what we need. Below them on Earth, President Dong-hyun was receiving more reports. The situation was getting worse. Small conflicts were spreading. The coalition was paralyzed. Earth's military was strong, but not strong enough to police the entire galaxy. In the Scaleth Empire, Phraxus was meeting with his war council. The humans sent one fleet to reclaim one colony. That is all. They are weak. We proceed with Phase 2. Target the human mining operations in the Outer Rim. All of them. On Varanthi hive ships, Althanor was planning similar expansions. The humans cannot protect everything. We take what we need. If they resist, we fight. They do not have their monster anymore. The Kryn packs were raiding freely now. Human ships were avoiding entire sectors of space. Trade was being disrupted. Colonies were being abandoned. And in the deep dark between stars, long-range sensors detected something else. Something moving. Something that had been waiting. But no one was paying attention to those sensors. They were all too busy fighting each other. Just like the old days, just like before Taemin, the galaxy was fracturing, and the cracks were spreading fast. One human departed and the galaxy realized peace was over. Jiwoo spent 2 weeks studying her father's files. She barely ate. She barely slept. Her husband Jun-ho brought her food and worried, but he understood. Something had changed in his wife. She had a purpose now. A burning determination that reminded him of someone he had never met but had heard stories about. The files revealed patterns. Her father had not just collected information randomly. He had built a network. A web of connections, obligations, and carefully placed pressure points. And at the center of it all was one name that appeared again and again. Phraxus. He is the keystone, Jiwoo said to Hyun-soo during one of their meetings. They met in secure locations now, away from official channels. My father identified him 30 years ago. Phraxus has been planning this for decades. He has been coordinating with other species, promising them shares of human territory if they help destabilize the coalition. Hyun-soo leaned forward, studying the data on her screen. If we remove Phraxus from the equation, the alliance collapses. The other species are opportunists. They will not risk real war without someone strong leading them. My father knew this. He kept Phraxus in check through careful pressure. But with my father gone, Phraxus thinks he can finally win, so we need to stop him. But how? The Scaleth Empire is powerful. We cannot fight them directly. Jiwoo smiled, and it was not a kind smile. My father did not fight them directly either. He fought smart. We do the same. She began to implement her plan. First, she needed to re-establish her father's network. The files contained names of people across the galaxy who owed Taemin favors. Some were politicians. Some were military officers. Some were information brokers and smugglers. Her father had helped all of them at some point, usually quietly, usually without asking for anything in return. Now Jiwoo was calling in those debts. A message went out through encrypted channels. Taemin's daughter requests your aid. The responses came slowly at first. Some people did not believe it was really her. Others were afraid. But Hyun-soo verified her identity, and slowly the old network came back to life. A Varanthi merchant who Taemin had once saved from pirates provided shipping manifests showing military movements. A Luminar information broker shared intercepted communications. A human smuggler in Scaleth space reported on fleet positions. Jiwoo gathered it all. She was an engineer, trained to solve complex problems by breaking them into smaller pieces. She applied that thinking to war. Vraxis is moving his main fleet toward the outer rim, she told Admiral Subin during a secret meeting. He plans to attack 15 human mining colonies simultaneously. He thinks we cannot defend them all. We cannot, Subin admitted. We do not have enough ships. We do not need to defend them. We need to make him think attacking them will cost too much. Jiwoo brought up a display. My father's files show that Vraxis has 3 weaknesses. First, his own war council is divided. Several generals oppose this war. Second, his supply lines are stretched. He is moving faster than his logistics can support. Third, he has enemies within his own empire who will move against him if he shows weakness. How does that help us? We exploit all 3 at once. Jiwoo's eyes gleamed. We launch an information campaign showing that this war is costing Scaleth lives and resources. We sabotage his supply lines through covert operations, and we send evidence of his plans to his political rivals. We make him fight on multiple fronts, not just against us. Subin stared at the young woman. That is exactly how your father would approach this. I am not my father, but I learned how to think from him. Even if I did not know I was learning, the plan went into motion. It was not a military operation. It was an engineering problem being solved. A data package was leaked to Scaleth News Network showing casualty projections from the war. The numbers were real, taken from Vraxis's own military analysis. Scaleth civilians saw for the first time what this conflict would truly cost. Protests began on Scaleth worlds. A team of human special forces, guided by intelligence from Jiwoo's network, destroyed a key supply depot in neutral space. Vraxis's fleet suddenly found itself short on fuel and ammunition. Evidence of Vraxis's secret dealings with other species was sent to his political rivals. It showed that he had promised away Scaleth territory to buy their support. His own people began to question his leadership, and then Jiwoo did something her father had never done. She went public. She appeared on Galactic News Networks through a hologram. She did not introduce herself as a diplomat or a military officer. She introduced herself as Taiman's daughter. My name is Jiwoo. My father kept the peace in this galaxy for 40 years. He did it not through war, but through understanding. He showed leaders what their choices would cost. He gave them the chance to choose peace. He is gone now, and some of you think that means you can take what you want. She paused, and her eyes, so much like her father's, scanned the camera. My father kept detailed files on every major power in this galaxy. Files that show your secrets, your crimes, your weaknesses. I have those files now. All of them. Across the galaxy, in private chambers and war rooms, leaders suddenly felt a chill. I am not my father. I am not a soldier. But I am his daughter, and I have his information. So I am making you the same offer he would make. Choose peace, and these files stay private. Choose war, and I will use everything he gave me. Every secret, every piece of leverage. I will make your own people turn against you. I will destroy your credibility. I will make you lose without ever fighting a battle. She leaned forward. My father proved that one human could stop empires. I am about to prove that his daughter can do the same. This is your only warning. The broadcast ended. The reaction was immediate. On the Scaleth homeworld, Vraxis threw furniture across his command center. She is bluffing. She is an engineer, not a warrior. But his advisors were not so sure. They remembered Taiman. They remembered what happened to those who challenged him. And now his daughter had his intelligence, his network, his knowledge. Perhaps we should reconsider the timeline, one general suggested carefully. Our supply issues are becoming critical, and the political situation at home. We proceed as planned. Vraxis roared. But there was uncertainty in his voice now. In the Varanthi collective, Althanor received a private message. It was a single file from Jiwoo's network. Inside was evidence of his personal corruption, money he had stolen from military budgets. If this information reached the collective queens, he would be executed. The message came with a note. Withdraw from the human trade stations. This evidence stays private. Althanor withdrew his forces the next day. The Kryn packs received a different kind of message. Their raid routes were exposed. Coalition patrols were suddenly waiting for them at every turn. 3 pack leaders were captured in 1 week. The attack stopped. All across the galaxy, the coordinated aggression against humanity began to crumble. Not because of military action, but because one woman had weaponized information just like her father had. But Vraxis would not back down. He was too committed. His fleet continued moving toward human space. He was gambling everything on one massive strike that would shatter human defenses and prove that Jiwoo was just a girl playing at her father's game. Jiwoo knew he was coming. She could see it in the intelligence reports. And she knew something else, something her father's files had warned about. Something worse than Vraxis. She called an emergency meeting with Admiral Subin and President Dong-hyun. Vraxis will attack in 3 days, she said without preamble. He is bringing everything he has. 200 warships. Can we stop him? The president asked. With our current forces? No. Jiwoo brought up a star map. But I have been looking at my father's old intelligence. There is something else happening. Something the entire galaxy has forgotten about while we fight each other. She highlighted a sector of space beyond the galactic rim. The Vorash. My father drove them back 40 years ago. Everyone thinks they are gone. They are not. They have been breeding, building, waiting, and my father was the only thing keeping them at bay. He sent drone missions out there every year. He monitored them. Without him, no one is watching. Subin felt ice form in her stomach. The Vorash swarms. I thought that was just a legend. It was not. And they are coming. My father's last report, written a week before he died, shows massive fleet movements. They will arrive in approximately 60 days. Then why are we fighting each other? Dong-hyun demanded. Why is Vraxis doing this? Because he does not know. No one knows except my father, and he is dead. He kept that secret to avoid panic. But now we need to tell them. We need to unite the galaxy against the real threat. Will they believe us? Jiwoo smiled sadly. They will. Because I am about to show them something my father never wanted anyone to see. The footage of what the Vorash actually are. She uploaded a file. It was 40 years old, grainy and corrupted in places. But it showed a world being consumed. Not conquered, consumed. The Vorash did not take prisoners. They did not occupy territory. They stripped worlds down to bedrock and ate everything living. And there were millions of them coming. Vraxis needs to see this, Jiwoo said. Everyone needs to see this. Because in 60 days, none of our petty wars will matter. We either stand together or we all die. One human departed, and the galaxy realized peace was over. The footage played on every news network in the galaxy. 40 years old, but still terrifying. A garden world called Theta 7, home to 3 billion Scaleth colonists. The Vorash arrived like a plague. They came in ships that looked organic, grown rather than built. Thousands of them, then tens of thousands. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply descended on the planet and began to feed. The recording showed cities being torn apart. Not by weapons, but by the Vorash themselves. They were insectoid creatures, each the size of a human with mandibles that could tear through metal. They worked together like cells in a body, perfectly coordinated by queen minds that controlled millions of drones. Within 6 hours, Theta 7 was silent. The cities were gone. The forests were gone. Even the topsoil was gone. The planet was left as bare rock. 3 billion dead, not a single survivor. The recording ended with footage of a younger Taiman standing in a command center. His voice was hard and cold. This is what we face. This is what I stopped. They are still out there. They are always hungry, and they will come back. Across the galaxy, leaders watched in horror. Vraxis stood frozen in his war room. He remembered Theta 7. He had family there. He was just a young soldier when it happened. And he had believed the official story that the colony was destroyed by a natural disaster. It was not a disaster. It was genocide. Jiwoo's voice came over the broadcast. My father spent 40 years monitoring the Vorash. He kept them beyond the galactic rim through targeted strikes and careful intimidation. He did this alone because he did not want to cause panic. But he is gone now. And they are coming. Our long-range probes detected their fleet 60 days ago. They will be here in approximately 8 weeks. She paused, letting that sink in. We can fight each other or we can survive. Choose now. The coalition held an emergency summit. Every species sent their leaders. For once, no one argued about seating arrangements or protocol. They all watched the footage again. They all saw the calculations that Taiman had made about Vorash fleet strength and movement patterns. Vraxis attended via hologram, his reptilian face grim. This information is verified? Kasara, the Luminar ambassador, answered. Commander Taiman shared some of this intelligence with me years ago. I can confirm it is real. The Vorash are real, and they are coming. Why did he not tell everyone? Ulthanor demanded. Why keep this secret? Because he knew what would happen, Jiwoo replied. She was attending in person, standing where her father once stood. Panic, military buildups, species accusing each other of weakness or conspiracy. He prevented all that by handling the threat himself. But he could not live forever. President Donghyun spoke up. The question now is what we do about it. Can we stop them? Admiral Subin brought up a tactical display. Commander Taemin left battle plans, multiple scenarios, but all of them assumed we would have more time to prepare. They also assumed he would be leading the operations. So we cannot win? A small alien representative asked, its voice frightened. My father's plans never assumed we could destroy the Vorash entirely, Jiwoo explained. They breed too fast, spread too quickly. His strategy was always to hurt them badly enough that they retreat, to make attacking us cost more than we are worth as food. It worked 40 years ago. It can work again. What do we need? Vraxis asked. His war fleet was still sitting in space, weapons charged, but now he looked uncertain. Everything, Subin answered bluntly. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon. And we need to work together. The Vorash do not care about our borders or our disputes. They will eat all of us equally. The summit lasted 3 days. Old enemies sat together and planned their defense. Vraxis contributed his fleet movements data. Althanor shared Varanthi bioweapon research. Even the Kryn packs offered their fast attack ships. But the mood was dark. Everyone knew the truth. They were not ready. They had spent 2 months fighting each other instead of preparing. The Vorash were coming, and the galaxy was divided, weakened, distracted. They needed more time. Time that Taemin's presence had always bought them. Time they no longer had. The first Vorash scouts arrived 3 weeks early. They hit a mining outpost on the galactic rim. The outpost sent one short message. They're here. Then silence. A coalition patrol arrived 6 hours later. The outpost was gone. Not destroyed, gone. Even the asteroids the miners had been working on were stripped clean. They are moving faster than Taemin predicted, Subin said grimly. She was in her flagship, leading a combined fleet of ships from 6 different species. They must have been closer than we thought. On Earth, Jiwoo was working around the clock. She had transformed her engineering laboratory into a war room. Displays showed fleet positions, resource distributions, intelligence reports. Hyunsu worked beside her, coordinating with the old network her father had built. We need to slow them down, Jiwoo said. Buy time for the main fleet to get into position. How? The Vorash do not negotiate. They do not stop. Jiwoo pulled up one of her father's old files. My father fought them once before. He learned their patterns. The Vorash follow the queen mines. Kill a queen and thousands of drones become disorganized. He targeted the queens using small strike teams. It worked. That was 40 years ago. They have adapted. Their queens are better protected now. Then we adapt too. A plan formed. It was insane. It was desperate. It was exactly what Taemin would have done. A volunteer force was assembled. 30 soldiers from different species, the best of the best. They trained for a week, learning to work together. Leading them was a young human officer named Ye Jin. She was 23 years old and had grown up hearing stories about Taemin. He was her hero. This mission will probably kill you all, Admiral Subin told them bluntly. You will board a Vorash hive ship, fight through thousands of drones and destroy the queen mind. The chances of survival are almost zero. Understood, Admiral, Yejin replied. Her voice was steady. But if we do not try, we all die anyway. At least this way we die doing something that matters. The team launched in a small stealth ship. Jiwoo watched from Earth, monitoring their progress. She felt sick. These people were going to die because of her plan. But her father's files were clear. This was how you fought the Vorash. You made them pay for every inch. The Vorash main fleet arrived at the outer rim 2 days later. Hundreds of organic ships, each one carrying thousands of drones. The first battle began above a colony world called Haven. 50,000 humans lived there. They could not evacuate in time. The coalition fleet engaged the Vorash in space. Ships from a dozen species fought side by side. Vraxis commanded the Scaleth forces with brutal efficiency. Althanor's Varanthi ships released biological weapons that ate through Vorash hull material. Human carriers launched fighter squadrons that harassed the larger enemy ships. But they were losing. The Vorash just kept coming. For every ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. The drones did not fear death. They did not retreat. They just attacked again and again. On the surface of Haven, the colonists tried to fight as Vorash landing ships began to descend. They had small arms, civilian weapons. It was not nearly enough. The creatures poured out of their ships like a wave of teeth and claws. In space, Yejin's strike team reached the hive ship. They attached to the hull and cut their way inside. Immediately, drones swarmed them. The fighting was brutal and close. No room for tactics, just survival. Yejin led her team deeper into the ship. Half of them died in the first 5 minutes. The survivors kept going, following schematics that Taemin had documented decades ago. The hive ships had not changed much. The queens were always in the center, protected by layers of drones and organic armor. "Keep moving," Yejin shouted. She fired her weapon until it overheated, then drew a blade. Around her, soldiers from different species fought and died together. A Scaleth warrior fell protecting a human medic. A Varanthi drone operator was torn apart while guiding them through corridors. They reached the queen chamber with only 8 soldiers remaining. The queen mind was massive, a bloated creature connected to the ship itself through organic cables. It screamed at them, a sound that was felt more than heard. Drones poured in from every entrance. "Plant the charges," Yejin ordered. She stood at the entrance holding the line. Beside her, a Luminar soldier formed barriers of hardened light. Behind them, the others worked frantically to set antimatter explosives. One by one, her soldiers fell. The Luminar soldier dissolved under acid spray. The last Scaleth warrior was dragged down by a dozen drones. Soon it was just Yejin and one other human, a demolitions expert named Seungwoo. "Charges are set," Seungwoo gasped. He was bleeding from multiple wounds. 30-second timer, then we run. No time. "Too many drones between us and the exit." Seungwoo smiled sadly. "But you can make it if someone holds them here." "No, we both," Seungwoo pushed her toward the door. "Tell them what we did here. Tell them we did not give up." He activated the timer and turned to face the oncoming swarm. Yejin ran. Behind her, she heard Seungwoo firing until his weapon clicked empty, then the sound of his blade striking chitin. She reached the hull breach just as the antimatter charge detonated. The hive ship tore itself apart from the inside. One human departed and the galaxy realized peace was over. The War Council met on Andros Station, the same place where Timon had once negotiated peace. Now it was a military headquarters. Representatives from 12 species gathered around holographic displays showing Vorash fleet positions. "They are massing for another attack," Vraxis reported. His war fleet had lost 60 ships in the last battle. His proud voice now carried respect when he spoke to the humans. "Our intelligence suggests they will hit 3 systems simultaneously. We cannot defend all of them." Admiral Subin studied the tactical map. She had been fighting for 3 weeks straight with almost no sleep. "If we split our forces, the Vorash will destroy each group separately. If we concentrate our fleet, 2 systems will be lost before we can respond." "Then what do we do?" Althanor asked. The Varanthi representative looked exhausted. His people had suffered heavy casualties too. Jiwoo stood up. She had been quiet during most of the meeting, reviewing her father's files. "We are fighting this war wrong." Everyone turned to look at her. "My father's battle records show that conventional warfare does not work against the Vorash. They breed faster than we can kill them. They do not fear losses. Every battle of attrition favors them. So we should surrender?" A small alien delegate asked bitterly. "No. We make them afraid to attack us." Jiwoo brought up new data. The strike team mission worked. When Yejin destroyed that queen mine, the entire hive ship became useless. My father discovered this 40 years ago. The Vorash are not one species. They are weapons. The queens control everything. Without queens, the drones are just mindless insects. "We know this," Vraxis said. "But getting to the queens is almost impossible. We lost an entire strike team doing it once. We cannot do it again and again. We do not need to reach every queen. We need to make the Vorash queen mines afraid. We need to show them that attacking us means death for them personally." Subin leaned forward. "How?" "My father did not just fight the Vorash. He hunted them. Small teams, stealth operations. He killed 17 queens over 5 years. Eventually, the Vorash queen mines learned. They started avoiding human space because the cost was too high. Not because we destroyed their fleets. Because we made their leaders afraid to lead." The room was silent. It was a terrifying strategy. It meant more suicide missions. More soldiers dying in dark corridors of alien ships. But it also meant the war could be won. I will not order soldiers to their deaths repeatedly, Subin said carefully. That is not a strategy. That is murder. It is not murder if they volunteer, and they will volunteer. Jiwoo looked at each representative. My father proved that humans will do impossible things when necessary. But he never asked anyone to follow him. People chose to, and they still will. Within a day, 500 soldiers from 8 different species had volunteered. They knew the odds. They knew most of them would die. But they also knew that this was how the war would be won. Not through massive fleet battles, but through brave people doing terrible things in the dark. Ye Jin was among the volunteers. She had recovered from her injuries and refused to stay behind. I know how to kill queens now, she said simply. I can teach others. Training began immediately. The volunteers learned the layout of Vorash ships, the patterns of drone movements, the fastest ways to reach queen chambers. They learned to work in small teams, moving fast and hitting hard. Jiwoo coordinated everything from Earth. She used her father's network to gather intelligence on Vorash movements. She identified which hive ships carried queens and which were just troop transports. She calculated the timing of each mission to maximize disruption. It was not war, it was assassination on a massive scale. The first wave of strike teams launched a week later, 15 teams, each targeting a different hive ship. They went in fast, using small stealth craft that the Vorash sensors barely detected. 9 teams succeeded. 6 were wiped out completely, but 9 queens died and 9 hive ships became chaos. The Vorash attack that was supposed to hit 3 systems never came. The swarm was too busy reorganizing. The second wave launched 3 days later. This time 12 teams went out. 8 succeeded. The Vorash began to adapt, increasing security around their queens. But it did not matter. The teams adapted too. By the 4th week, the Vorash advance had stopped completely. Their queen minds were spending more energy protecting themselves than directing attacks. And slowly, carefully, they began to withdraw. Not because the coalition had destroyed their fleet. Not because they ran out of drones. But because the queen minds, the intelligence behind the swarm, were afraid. Ye Jin led the final mission herself. Intelligence showed the primary queen mind. The mother of the swarm was in a massive ship beyond the galactic rim. Kill her, and the entire Vorash invasion would collapse. This is a one-way trip, Admiral Subin told the volunteers bluntly. Even if you succeed, you will not have enough fuel to return. You will be stranded in deep space. We know, Ye Jin replied. Her team stood behind her. 20 soldiers, the best of the survivors, human, Scalith, Varanthi, Luminar, and others. They had fought together, bled together, become something new together. Why? Subin asked. Why sacrifice yourselves? Because Commander Taemin taught us something, Ye Jin said quietly. Peace is not free. Someone has to stand between civilization and chaos. Someone has to be willing to pay the price. He paid it for 40 years. Now it is our turn. The mission launched at dawn. Earth time, though dawn had no meaning in space. Jiwoo watched from her command center, tracking their signal. President Dong Hyun stood beside her, silent. The team reached the primary hive ship 3 days later. It was enormous, 10 times the size of the largest coalition vessel. It carried the mother queen and an honor guard of 100,000 drones. They cut their way inside. The drones were waiting. The fighting was immediate and brutal. The team pushed forward, losing members with every corridor. Ye Jin led from the front, her weapon never stopping. They reached the inner chambers with only 6 soldiers left. The Mother Queen was ancient, massive, connected to the ship through thousands of organic cables. She knew they were coming. Drones filled every space between the team and their target. Plant the charge and go, Ye Jin ordered. I will hold here. We stay together, a Scalith warrior said. His name was Tae Sung, and he had fought beside Ye Jin for weeks. No. Someone needs to arm the device. Someone needs to make sure it detonates. That is my job. Yours is to get out and tell them what we did here. She did not wait for argument. She charged forward into the mass of drones, firing and cutting, drawing them away from her team. Behind her, the others moved to the Queen, working frantically to plant the antimatter charge. Ye Jin fought until her weapon was empty, then used her blade, then her hands. The drones overwhelmed her slowly. She felt claws tearing into her armor, felt pain, but she kept fighting. She needed to buy just a little more time. Charge is armed, someone shouted. 30 seconds. Fall back. Ye Jin could not fall back. She was buried under drones now, holding them down, keeping them away from the others. She smiled, tasting blood. "Tell them I did not give up," she whispered into her radio. "Tell them the commander would be proud." The charge detonated. The Mother Queen died instantly. The entire ship tore apart, and the Vorash swarm across dozens of systems suddenly went quiet. Without the Mother Queen's coordination, the lesser queens panicked. Without queens, the drones became confused. The swarm that had threatened to consume the galaxy began to collapse from within. They retreated beyond the rim, back into deep space, following instincts older than civilization. 4 members of Yejin's team survived. They were recovered by a coalition patrol 2 days later, drifting in an escape pod, barely alive. When they woke up in the medical bay, they asked if the mission had worked. "It worked," Admiral Subin told them. "The Voresh are gone. You saved the galaxy." 1 year later, Andros Station held a memorial service. A statue was unveiled in the main plaza. It showed Commander Taman standing tall, his face calm and determined. The inscription read, "Peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of those brave enough to stand against it." But Taman's statue was not alone. Behind him, carved in relief on a curved wall, were hundreds of names. Every soldier who had died fighting the Vorash. Every volunteer who had given their lives on those dark missions. Yejin's name was there, prominent and proud. Jiwoo stood before the memorial during the dedication ceremony. She wore her father's old military jacket, the one she had found in his belongings. It did not fit her well, but she wore it anyway. "My father kept peace through fear," she said to the assembled crowd. Representatives from every coalition species were present. He made people afraid to start wars because they knew he would stop them. It worked, but it was not enough. Fear only lasts as long as the person you fear is alive. She gestured to the wall of names. "These people bought us a different kind of peace. They showed us that peace must be earned, that it requires sacrifice, that every generation must choose to protect it, not because they fear one person, but because they understand what is lost when peace fails." President Dong Hyun spoke next. "We are establishing the Taemin Corps, a permanent force of volunteers from all coalition species.